Mr. Yerima Shatima is our friend here, is the leader at the Arawa Consultative Youth Forum. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Sam. How are you?
Let me get your view quickly about today's, the significance of democracy and the journey. How do you think we have gone, and how far do you think we have come? What do you think we should be doing urgently?
Well, in fairness to you, the journey was a long journey because some of us were product of the struggle for close to 2 decades today. And we've always been into the advocacy of insisting that the right thing be done. At some point in 1993, there was an election. Something happened. An election was free and fair, irrespective of where people come from. Religion was not yardstick to why people cannot elect somebody they want at that time. Religion was not a problem, and ethnicity also was not a problem. Where you have a situation where a vice president was a Muslim, and the president himself at that time, who was contesting side by side, they are both Muslims, and nobody even raised any eyebrow. All what they were talking about was about Nigeria, 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 and all of a sudden there was a free and fair election. Suddenly, something happened along the way where the election was annulled, and that provoked a lot of things that had happened at that time. We were very young, and we were part of the struggle at that time. So many things happened down the drain 26 years after. So many things happened till this moment. One of the important things I could remember vividly here was that it was a good thing by the government of the day to have in the first place take cognizance of the fact that there are yearnings of people for overtime and a journey of 1 million miles. If you had an opportunity and you started with one step, certainly one day we'll get there, even though we expect more and we're still asking for more. Because the issue of June 12 is not just about killing around Chief Abiola. It has to do with a lot of people and even Nigerians as a whole. A lot of people have paid supreme prices. A lot of people suffer a lot of incarceration. A lot of us also suffer a lot of, so many things happen along the line. But having said that, we also know that it's the processes. At least we must commend the government of the day to have in the first place initiate the processes. But there are still more things to be done. Beyond just the event, beyond just the issue of allocating an abandoned stadium, naming after Chief Abiola, there are more to it.
If you look at some of what we're facing presently in Nigeria, some of the tenets of good democracy is the rule of law, the issue of electoral process, the issue of freedom of speech. If you look at what we have right now, how do we make the system that will make a deep process of our democracy better?
Like I said, the struggle of June 12 as a whole has to do, is an ideological thing, is a struggle of democracy, to say, to an extent. Now, one of the problems I have is that you're talking about democracy, you're talking about democracy, and some of the shortcomings of this government give me a lot of reason to get worried in terms of issue of lack of respect to the rule of law, issue of security. We are more divided than we were in the past. So many things are involved. So I get worried and I begin to see the whole thing. On one side, you are happy that the government have taken note or cognizance of this on one side, and the other side again, you are beginning to see that the issue of, because the whole ideology, the whole idea about even the Abiola manifestation has to do with the issue of doing away with hunger, poverty.
Yeah, those are some of the manifestos.
Those are the major things that even attracted the country to actually work. So I want to look at the situation where the government, beyond this issue of celebrating, marking the day as Democracy Day, the government must put up something to look into some of this critical issue of poverty, issue of respect to the rule of law, and that's the only way we can begin to get convinced that truly this government meant well done. On one side, you are doing one thing, on the other way, you're doing on that different. So it gives us a lot of worry, and some of us are really not too comfortable with the situations for now. But let us look. Time and event will actually unfold some of those things.
When the issues of restructuring came up, I know you were...
I have been an advocate of restructuring.
Yeah, so, and it's a kind of restructuring exactly that a lot of Nigerians talk about. So when people are talking about restructuring, it means different things to different people. Restructuring to Arawa Consultative Forum, what does it mean?
Well, for us, when you talk about restructuring, I don't know what other people are thinking, but for us, we are looking at a situation where the center is so strong and there's a need to totally decentralize the central government. Where we have the problem we have today is that you have a few full hand of people who reside in Abuja. That determines what happens in other regions. In Abuja, they don't even get to the people to know exactly what is happening. You find a situation where the government is not connecting to the people. For us, we felt strongly on the issue of security, on issue of economic. Those are key issues that must also be seen. And those things have a major play to play in our life as a nation. One, I talk about security situation. You don't expect to run this kind of system where you have a police that have a particular central authority that only instructs you take a man from Kauranamoda as DPO, you take him to Oshobo and you expect him to perform. Under this system, it's totally impossible because one, language barrier will play a major role for his success. Now, or you take somebody from Ogomosho, you take him to Kauranamoda and you expect him to perform Daura, when all his life he has never been there. Language issue, intelligence gathering, and so on and so forth will play a major role. For me, I believe strongly if we have a situation where the police itself, that's in terms of security, now you have a situation where, like any other developed nation, where you see the structure of the police is being so decentralized that even in America you begin to see likes of sheriff and other security forces working for the communities and even the state and so on and so forth. The central police oversee some of these affairs and do their own thing their own way. They connect to an extent, perhaps. We'll begin to see a light at the end of the tunnel. But a situation where you sit down, you have an IG, you have a CP in a state, and the CP does not even take instruction from the state governor. He ends up telling you he need to get an order from the IG. That's totally unacceptable because you begin to run a situation where the security will be very hard to control, really. And once you cannot bring somebody who relates with the people, who is not part of that, it will be difficult to begin to get some of this intelligence because one, it has to do with confidence within the community for them to reach out to discuss with people who are saddled with that responsibility. If somebody move from here as a Yoruba man, go to northern part of the country, one of the village and becomes a DPO, of course, the issue of trust, you can now just know that truly the confidence aspect of it is being defeated already. Now, if you come issue of economic again, you begin to see a situation where these are state governors, to an extent, they are not productive because we run a system that they become so lazy, the governors, they wait for federal allocations to execute some of those things, begin to run the governance. They don't sit down on their own and become creative and begin to harness the resources within the state for the well-being of their people. Then it gives us a lot of concern because if you run that kind of government and you run it in that manner, of course, you expect the state governors to also be unproductive at the end of the day. They'll continue to wait for the allocation. But when you run a system where the central government has been so decentralized and the center is less attractive, of course, you can be rest assured if people on their own go back to their region or their state, they become more viable, more productive, they begin to harness their resources, even if it takes the government at the end of the day to come up and amend the constitution. Where taxes will be paid to the center, it makes a lot of sense than the way it's being run today. Right. We cannot continue to manage the system the way it is. And that's just a simple, and that's what I understand by our issue of restructuring.
Because, I mean, there was the 2014 confab.
Yes.
The report, the recommendations are there. That's not the only national conference that we have. If you are in President Buhari's shoes, would you consider that confab report?
The 2014 confab. You see, the issue of confab, some of us felt strongly that, I was in program here. You anchored the program. Before the confab, that was exactly 2013 to 2014 at that time. I remember vividly we were raising a lot of issues, me and Yinka Odumaki here. We raised issues that, look, you cannot just sit down. The confab at that time just sat down and begin to select people they are comfortable with. And they run it the way they want it. At the end of the day, it goes almost the same way with that of Obasanjo confab. Do you remember vividly at the time of Obasanjo confab, some of us were organizing Pronaco conference under leadership of Anthony Nahoro and Nahoro and Wole Soyinka and late blessed memory Beko Ramson, because we were the leader at that time. Then I was the youth director. We did our own side by side when Obasanjo was busy doing his own kind of conference. We were also doing the True People's Conference at that time. We came up with a draft constitution. And similar thing happened during the 2014 Jonathan conference. People were selected without properly consulting. People were not nominated based on where they come from. People were just selected somehow. That the kind of selection they did was more or less looking at the pieces of people they feel they're comfortable with and bring them on board and begin to do all sort of things.
So
and
the whole thing went. The composition of the confab is not well structured.
No, it was not well. The composition was.
But what about the report? Well, I mean, a lot of people have said some of the reports make a lot of sense.
The legitimacy matter. We challenge the legitimacy of that confab. The composition is a problem.
So where
no
do
matter
we
how
go?
beauty it is.
Where do we go if you want to make a strong structural change in the country in terms of the position of our constitution and the urgent need to fix the structure of the country?
It is easy to go by looking at the structure of the country. You have almost 444 local government. You can as well go. If you have all these structures on ground, give the community leaders of where we're talking about, let them give their best 11 to come from the zonal level to local government level, from local government to state level, and then we meet at the center. Now we can discuss, deliberate issues, come up with a document where at the end of the day, we'll put it as a referendum, debate it, agree to disagree, then you can come up with something that you can be rest assured of. This is how far you've come, and this is a document that have legitimacy. And then you can push the government to look into it and also consider. Yeah. But not in a situation where people are just selected. Some of them do not even get in touch with their constituencies. They don't even know their people in their villages. They just come up and just discuss the issue at their comfort zone and come up with documents. Of course, some of us out there will challenge the legitimacy of that document.
Let me put this question to you, especially on what the president said today. Yeah. You heard the speech and how the event went. Yeah. Something struck a lot of people, including me. It came out to me. And one of the things the president said, he said, China and Indonesia succeeded under authoritarian regimes. India succeeded in a democratic setting. We can do it. With leadership, a sense of purpose, we can lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years. What do you make of that kind of statement?
Well, the truth of the matter, it is easy to say than done. Last 4 years, we've seen all of it, promises and promises. One will have expected that the government of the day that comes actually for a reason, known by all Nigerians that certain things were happening at the time of Jonathan, before the election. Some of us have our reservations. Nigerians were yearning for change, believing that that government was so corrupt, without clear direction of its policies. So many things have gone out of hand, insecurities and so on and so forth. One would have expected that the coming of this government, they would have come up with the Marshall plans. They would have their blueprints and begin to execute without delay. You can look, if you want to be sincere, and all of us and Nigerians will be sincere and fair enough for ourselves, you would have known that the last 4 years was waste. Let us be honest. Nothing had happened.
So what is your expectation for the next 4 years?
My expectation, one, it takes all of them. When I talk about all of them, beyond, not just the president now, it has to be all-inclusive. A team that will have to work with the president, because naturally you expect to have a good team who believes and share your dreams to work together with, unlike what we had after 6 months. At the end of the day, become what brought some of the worst so-called cabinets that we've seen over time. He needs to take his time. There's no time, really, because Nigerians are tired of waiting. He must come up with people based on merit, not on sentiment, not on politics ground. People who have experience of where they are going to be assigned to do certain things. They must come on board to do the good thing, because he has to also bear in mind that after his tenure, because he's not going to be there forever, someday he's going to go out of there and he'll be remembered for either good side of history or on the ugly side of history.
Do you believe in his capacity?
It's not about him. It's not about him now. It's about a teamwork.
But he's a leader.
He's a leader.
He needs to chart a course.
He needs to channel a course, but he needs a team to work with.
But do you think that he can lead? Because he's talking about
with reliable people around him, he will. It's possible. It's not about him.
You believe in the person of Muhammadu Buhari?
That's a different ball game altogether.
As a leader? As
a leader, of course he's a leader of a country. I believe in him as a president of a country. But in terms of work, where we need to see a team working together, of course you and I will agree that he can't do the job alone. He needs people who are more realistic, who are patriotic enough, who have the country at heart to work together with.
All right. Mr. Yerima Shettima, it's always a pleasure talking to you, and it's nice to have you again on the program. Mr. Yerima Shettima is the Secretary General of the Arewa.
I'm the president.
You are the president, of the Arewa Youth Consultative Firm. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. And Happy Democracy Day.
Thank you.